This is Rachel Winenberg, the Helpful Art Teacher, showing you how you can make a fantasy cityscape with a Sharpie and a piece of paper, and then put it into Photoshop and manipulate it to make fantastic, colorful, layered cities like this one. So first, here you see me drawing with the Sharpie marker. Anytime you leave any sort of little gap in the building or in any of your lines, you're going to have to close that off with a Sharpie, or else it's going to cause problems later when you're in Photoshop. So notice how every single little building I draw, if I leave a little gap, which it's very common to do when you're drawing, just close it off like I did just there. Anything above the horizon line is pointing up, so the tops of those buildings, if you look at the corners of them, they're pointing up like an arrow pointing up. Anything below the horizon line, like the bottom of that round building, would be curved down or pointed down because it's below the horizon line. It's below your eye level, so you're looking down at it. It's very hard to see the horizon line here because I drew it very lightly in pencil, so I wouldn't have to worry about erasing it later. But you can just make it out barely. So here I go. I'm just closing up all the little gaps with the black lines. I'm filling in all my details. And when I'm done with the city, I'm going to take a photograph of it just with my phone and email it to myself. When you open it up in Photoshop, it's going to be only 72 pixels per square inch. That's not high resolution enough. So we're going to copy it and paste it into a new file that's 300 psi. Now I'm trying to use the rectangular marquee tool, but it's crooked, so I'm not able to do that. So I just hit transform, edit, transform, rotate, and rotated the tile. Now I'm going to try and eliminate the background. As you can see, I have a layer. If you don't have layers on the right hand side, you can click window and click layers so you can see the layers. What you're going to have to do is, if you just have the image in the background, you're going to have to click layers and then turn the background into a layer, so it will be layer 0. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to actually eliminate the background. I'll need to eliminate the background completely for the purpose of being able to manipulate this image in Photoshop. And I'm having trouble. As you can see, even if I select everything out of the background with the magic wand tool, there's still little bits of miscoloration. It could be from my pencil erasures, it could be a shadow on the paper, it could be almost anything, but I'm not really able to cleanly cut everything out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit select color range, and I'm going to select the shadows, and I'm going to hit edit cut, and it's just going to take the black lines. And then I'm going to do file new, and I'm going to then paste it in a new file, and now it's actually perfect black lines on a white background. Again, you're going to have to do layer and then layer from background. So now it's layer 0, and then you're going to have to select the background with the magic wand tool, edit cut, and that gets rid of the entire background. You'll see that little grid pattern there. That means the background's gone. At this point, you can save your tile as a Photoshop file. That way, if you ever need to come back to it later, if you mess up later, you always have it. So I created a folder on my desktop, and I'm saving everything as I go in that folder. I just changed the size of the canvas. I hit image, canvas size, and I doubled the size of the canvas. So then I took my layer and I hit duplicate layer, and I then hit edit transform and then flip horizontal, and I use the move tool to drag my second layer over, and then I merge the two layers. Then I duplicated that layer and I hid the top layer, and I took the second layer and I started to change the size by hitting edit transform size, and I was able to move it up to create a layer over, underneath the first layer. So I was able to create the illusion of overlapping. When you want to hide a layer, all you have to do is click on the little eye next to the layer, and you can hide the layer. And then you can use the move tool, or you can hit edit, transform, size. You could hit it, edit, transform, flip horizontal. You could hit layer, duplicate, and manipulate things that way. So you're basically creating this layered cityscape. What I just did now to create those colors in the roof was I used the magic wand and the shift key, and I selected just the areas I wanted to color. So you can select multiple areas at once as long as you hold down the shift key. Then I went to the left where the tools were, and I took the gradient tool. Then I went to the two color tiles. There's two color tiles, one for foreground, one for background on the left side on the toolbar. And I chose my background and foreground color, and then I used the gradient tool. You just click where you want the gradient to start, and you pull down, and you click where you want the gradient to end, or pull up or diagonal, whatever direction. And you're going to create this nice flow of different colors. So if I pick white and blue, I'll get every color from white to light blue to medium blue to dark blue in this nice, beautiful gradient of colors. So whatever two colors you pick, your background color and your foreground color, that's your gradient. Now I'm just selecting different areas, and I'm using the gradient tool to fill them in. If you can't find the gradient tool, you just go to that little, there's three dots above the colors swatches, and you click on that, and additional tools that aren't appearing on the screen will pop up, and you'll be able to find them. Notice I'm saving my files in different formats. If you save it as a Photoshop file, you'll have all the layers intact from front to back, and you can edit individual layers. If you save it as a JPEG, that's like saving it as a flat picture. Most of the images you see online and on social media and stuff are JPEG images. It's like a flattened version, just a picture. If you save it as a PNG or portable network graphic, what you're doing is you're saving it as a flat image, so it doesn't take up as much room as a Photoshop file, but it has no background. Okay, I've eliminated the background. And that's very nice because you can add a background in later, you can use it as a background in an animation, you can put it in front of something, and you'll be able to see the other layers in back of it. Portable network graphics are used in animation and a lot of other applications. And you see that black background, that's because there's no background in it. So I habitually will save, when I'm working on something like this and I want layers, I'll save my images as PNGs, I'll save them as JPEGs, and I'll also save them as the original layered Photoshop file where I can edit the different layers. When you don't want to edit a layer and you want it to be hidden, you just click the eye next to the layer, and you'll be able to hide that layer, and you can manipulate and play around with just the layers you can see, and then click on the eye and the layer will reappear again. And if you don't want to mess around with the layer or accidentally move it, another thing you can do is there's a little, it almost looks like a padlock on the layer menu. If you click on a layer and click on the padlock, you can lock the layer, and that'll prevent you from accidentally moving the wrong layer. Here I hit the edit, transform, rotate key, and I'm taking a layer and rotating it, and I can also hit scale, and I change the size. I hit duplicate and flip horizontal to create a mirror image of it. And again, I have lots of hidden layers here, which are now going to reappear when I'm done editing. A note about color: if you hit image and if you select an area and you hit image, and there's all sorts of adjustments you can make in the color. You can change the intensity, there's a drop down menu, image and adjustments. for changing colors to make them brighter or duller. Generally speaking, I put brighter colors in the foreground, and I desaturate or put duller colors in the background. If you don't tone down the colors in the background, it tends to flatten the look of the image. It tends to, the background colors look like they're leaping forward, and it ruins the illusion that there's a background, middle ground, and foreground. So again, I'm just playing around with the gradients. The gradients will fill only the areas you select. So if you use the magic wand tool on the left-hand side, and you select an area, and then you hit the shift key and hold it down, and you select another area, you can select several areas at once, and then whatever you want to do manipulating color will just be in the areas you selected. Or you could select an entire layer. I generally, if I'm not working on a layer, tend to either lock or hide that layer so that I don't accidentally end up changing it once I've already gotten the way I want it. So again, I'm going to continually keep hiding various layers or locking them so that I can selectively change the brightness and contrast and saturation of the foreground, middle ground, and background to make things either advance or recede as I see fit. And again, there's a lot of tweaking that goes on here just to make things look right. There's no one right answer. I could use this image of a city in many, many different designs over and over again, and every time I sat down to play around with it, I would come up with a completely different design, completely different colors, without even planning to do that. That's the nice thing about art. There is no one right answer, and as Leonardo da Vinci once said, art is never finished. It is merely abandoned. So you could come back and use this image later when you're making an animation and make it the background of an animated cartoon, or you could use it in a design for a t-shirt you're selling, or a purse, or just a greeting card to send to somebody. There's many, many applications. And so you may come back and revisit this image many times or combine it with other images. So I'm just again playing around with the layers, hiding them, adding them back in, getting it the way I want. And eventually I'm going to save the entire thing as a JPEG. If I want to change the size of something, I hit Edit, Transform, Scale. If I want to rotate it, Edit, Transform, Rotate. If I want to flip it over and mirror it, it's Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And again, if you look on the right-hand side where the layer menu is, you could see that most of the layers are either locked or hidden. This is called curves. It's where you can change a lot of the properties of a color. If you select a certain area and you hit Image, Adjustments, Curves, and you play around by pulling that curve up or down, you can tweak how a color looks without having to redo the entire gradient. So if I want something a little brighter or a little duller, it's very useful. Play around with all the color adjustments and see what works for you. You can see I accidentally pulled down the background layer. I didn't mean to, so there's this little gap on the top. So that's another reason why it's a great idea to lock a layer when you're not working on it. You can always unlock it later when you want to work on it. That way you're not accidentally clicking on something you don't want to and frustrating yourself. However, if you do mess up, you can always hit Edit, Undo, and it'll undo the last thing you did. And you can hit Edit, Step Backwards. As long as you haven't closed out the program and saved it, as long as it's in a single work session, you can step backwards as many steps as you want to fix something that got messed up. And that's, if you think about digital art, is a lot like regular art, except that with digital art, the paint never dries. So once you have the image the way you want it, you're going to save the Photoshop file as a layered file. Don't forget to rename it. And then you're going to save your finished product as a JPEG image. And then what you want to do is you want to upload it to your Google Drive or your Z Drive, and you'll have it. You'll be able to access it from another workstation because it'll be on the cloud. This is the Helpful Art Teacher, Rachel Winnebarg.